My phone rang at 6:47 a.m. on my wedding day. The woman on the other end told me our honeymoon reservation no longer existed. I had 11 hours until I walked down the aisle. Let me back up. My name is Derek. I'm 31. I do commercial HVAC for a living, which means every single day I show up to fix problems that other people created. Broken systems, wrong parts, jobs that were supposed to be done 6 months ago and weren't. I stay calm. I find solutions. I thought none of that would matter on my wedding day. I was wrong. Kayla and I had been planning this wedding for 14 months. 14 months of venue tour, tasting menus, seating charts, and arguments about centerpieces that I did not care about but pretended to have opinions on so she didn't feel alone in it. We had 118 guests coming from 4 different states. Her parents had flown in from Portland. My brother Marcus had driven down from Buffalo with his wife and 2 kids. The rehearsal dinner the night before had gone perfectly. Everything was set. The total cost of the wedding was $34,200. I know that number exactly because I built a spreadsheet on day one and updated it every time we wrote a check or swiped a card. The venue was $8,400. Catering was $9,100. Photography and video $4,800. Flowers $1,600. DJ $900. Dress, alterations, tux rental, rings, another $6,200 spread across everything else. Then the honeymoon on top of all that. The honeymoon was Palmetto Shores Resort in South Carolina, 10 nights in a beachfront suite. I had booked it 8 months earlier and paid in full $4,650 because their website said full prepayment locked in the rate and guaranteed the room category. I had the confirmation email. I had the booking reference number. I had a printed PDF of the reservation in a folder in my car because that is exactly the kind of person I am. We were supposed to leave the morning after the wedding. Kayla had been looking forward to this trip for months. She'd saved photos of the beach, the infinity pool, the little outdoor shower by the room. She'd bought a new swimsuit. She talked about it all the time. So when Palmetto Shores called me at 6:47 a.m. on my wedding day, I didn't immediately process what the woman was saying. I was at my buddy Terrence's house. He was my best man. We'd stayed there the night before because Kayla and I were doing the whole don't see each other before the ceremony thing. I was sitting on the edge of the guest bed, still half asleep, tux hanging on the back of the door. My phone buzzed and I picked it up without looking at the number because I assumed it was my mom calling about pickup times. The woman said her name was Brittany and she was calling from Palmetto Shores Guest Services. She said there had been a system migration overnight and unfortunately it had resulted in some reservation data being lost. She said they were very sorry. She said my booking did not appear in their new system. I sat there for about 4 full seconds saying nothing. "You're telling me our honeymoon reservation is gone," I said. She confirmed it, "Very sorry. Full refund within 7 to 10 business days." 7 to 10 business days. I was supposed to be married in 11 hours. I told her I needed to call her back and hung up. Terrence walked in about 30 seconds later with 2 cups of coffee, took one look at my face, and set both cups down on the dresser. "What happened?" he said, not even a question, he could see it. I told him. His response was, "Oh, that is not good," which accurate. Here's the thing about being someone who fixes problems for a living. There's always a first phase that looks calm from the outside, but is really just your brain refusing to accept what it just heard. I sat there for 2 full minutes doing nothing, just holding my phone, sun coming through the blinds, one of Terrence's kids moving around in the next room, coffee going cold on the dresser. Then I picked up the phone and called Palmetto Shores back. Different person answered. A man named Gary. I explained the situation again and asked to speak to a manager. Gary put me on hold for 6 minutes and came back to tell me a manager would return my call within 2 business days. 2 business days? My wedding was in 11 hours. I asked Gary if he was serious. He said he understood my frustration and they were doing everything they could for affected guests. I told Gary I had a printed confirmation, a credit card statement showing the $46.50 charge, and apparently a lot of free time over 10 nights I'd just gotten back. He wished me a good day. I put the phone face down on the dresser. "Okay, think." Kayla didn't know yet. She was at her parents' hotel with her maid of honor, Priya, getting ready. The ceremony was at 6 p.m. at the Hartwell Garden venue downtown. Reception until 11. We were staying at a hotel that night and driving to South Carolina the next morning. She was going to find out eventually. The question was when and whether I'd have a solution before she did. I did not want her spending her wedding day stressed about a honeymoon. She'd been anxious for months. She'd lost 8 pounds from it, cried twice over the centerpieces, had a breakdown in April when the original florist bylaid. She deserved one day where everything felt right. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell her until I had something to replace it with, or until I absolutely had to. I grabbed a notepad from Terrence's nightstand, one of those little ones his daughter had decorated with a rooster on the cover, and I wrote down the problem. Palmetto Shores, canceled, fully booked 3 weeks, refund pending 7 to 10 days. Need, beachfront or beach adjacent, South Carolina or Georgia or Florida coast. Available tomorrow, 2 people, 10 nights, budget flexible. Money available now, $2,800 in checking, $6,000 on credit card. I looked at the list, then I wrote start calling. It was 7:14 a.m. I handed Terrence my checklist for the morning. He had actual logistics to manage, picking up boutonnieres, coordinating groomsmen arrival, and told him I needed 45 minutes on my phone before anything else. He took the list without asking questions. That's why he's my best man. I opened every hotel and resort booking platform on my phone and started with the stretch, the nice places. I searched available rooms for the following day within 20 miles of Myrtle Beach on 4 different sites. Everything was either fully booked, $800 a night, or both. I widened to the Georgia coast. Tybee Island, St. Simon's, Sea Island. Sea Island had availability, $1,140 a night. 10 nights was $11,400, not happening. I widened to Florida, the Panhandle, Destin, 30A, Panama City Beach. Panama City Beach had a condo rental, 2 bedrooms, direct oceanfront, $310 a night. 10 nights was $3,100. Close to possible if the Palmetto Shores refund came through, but I couldn't pay that right now. I had $2,800 in checking. I called the condo number. Voicemail, I left a message. I called Palmetto Shores back and asked specifically for the general manager. Got transferred 4 times. The 4th transfer sent me back to Gary. I hung up. It was 7:38 a.m. I hadn't put on my tux yet. Terrence knocked and said the groomsmen were 20 minutes out. I told him I needed 10 more minutes. I texted my brother Marcus. He's 43, has money, and has never once failed to pick up my calls. I typed, "Need a favor. Honeymoon Resort canceled on us this morning, looking for a replacement. Do you know anyone in hospitality?" Marcus called back in 2 minutes. His reaction when I explained the full situation was one word. No, just pure disbelief. Then he said, "On your wedding day? They called you on your wedding day." I said yes. He said give him 20 minutes. I trusted that completely. Marcus had spent a decade doing corporate event planning before he switched careers. He knew people. I put the phone down and went and put on my tux. Standing in front of Terrence's bathroom mirror buttoning my shirt, something shifted. Not calm exactly, more like focus. The panic had burned off. Now it was just a problem. A bad one with a deadline, but still just a problem. I'd sourced discontinued parts for HVAC units with 48 hours notice. I'd fixed broken chillers in August heat with a building full of angry tenants. A hotel room was solvable. I just needed to solve it before 6 p.m. Marcus called back at 8:02 a.m. He had a contact, a woman named Donna who managed a boutique inn on Amelia Island in Florida. He'd worked with her on a corporate retreat 6 years back and had called her directly. The inn was called the Blue Heron, 12 rooms right on the beach, private beach access. She had a suite available starting tomorrow, a last-minute cancellation that had just opened up. Not 10 nights, 8, but it was there and Donna had agreed to hold it for 2 hours. The rate was $385 a night. 8 nights was $3,080. I had $2,800 in checking. I asked Marcus if Donna would take a $500 deposit now and the balance on check-in. He said he'd ask. 4 minutes later, I got a text. She'd take the deposit and the balance at check-in, and she was throwing in a bottle of champagne and a late checkout on the last day because Marcus had told her what was happening and she thought it was outrageous. I put down a $500 deposit on my card at 8:09 a.m. Then I fired off a 4-paragraph email to Palmetto Shores documenting everything: original booking reference, the amount paid, the date and time of their call, the agent's name, and a formal request for refund escalation. I copied their corporate customer service address and their reservations manager address, both of which I found on their website in 90 seconds. I told them I expected refund confirmation within 24 hours and that I would be disputing the charge with my credit card company if I didn't receive it. Sent at 8:14 a.m. I walked out of the bathroom and Terrence handed me my coffee, which he had reheated. The groomsmen were all there. Everyone looked good. Marcus called one more time to say Donna had sent a booking confirmation to my email. I checked, it was there. The Blue Heron Inn, Amelia Island, Florida, 8 nights, suite with ocean view. Arrival tomorrow at 2 p.m. I took a real breath. All right, I said, let's go get me married. I still hadn't told Kayla. My plan was to tell her at the hotel that night, after the wedding, after dinner and dancing and pictures and all of it. We'd be alone. I'd have the confirmation on my phone. I could show her pictures of the inn, which honestly looked beautiful, small and quiet and right on the water, and tell her the story, which by then would be funny instead of terrifying. That plan lasted until 4:30 p.m. Priya texted me. She and Kayla were doing final photos at the venue garden before the ceremony. The text said, "Did something happen with the honeymoon? Kayla got an email from Palmetto Shores about a refund." I stared at the screen. Palmetto Shores had sent an automated refund confirmation, which I had actually wanted. But they'd sent it to Kayla too, because she was listed as a second guest on the original booking. So she knew. I asked Priya how Kayla was reacting. Priya said she'd gone very quiet and was staring at the email, not crying, just quiet. I texted back, "Tell her I have it handled and I need 5 minutes to call her." I stepped away from the groomsmen and called Kayla directly. She picked up on the first ring. I talked for about 90 seconds straight. Everything, the call at 6:47, Gary and his 2 business days, Marcus calling Donna, the deposit before 8 in the morning. I told her I was sorry she found out that way. There was a pause. Then she said, "Amelia Island is in Florida." I said yes, about 4 hours from here. She said, "I've always wanted to go to Amelia Island." I said I know, that's why I picked it, which was not entirely true. I picked it because it was what was available, but it wasn't entirely false either. She laughed, this short, disbelieving laugh. Then she said, "Only you would fix a catastrophe before 8 in the morning and not even mention it." I told her I wanted her to have a good wedding day. She went quiet for one more second and then said, "I'm good. I'm really good. Just come marry me." I hung up and stood in the hallway of the Hartwell Garden venue. Staff was moving around finishing setup, music from somewhere down the corridor. Terrence found me and asked if everything was okay. I said, yeah, everything was handled. He looked at me for a second and then said, "Derek, man, you dealt with a full-blown crisis before you even put your tux on your wedding day." I said I'd had a lot of practice. The ceremony started at exactly 6 p.m. Here's something nobody else knows about that ceremony. About 45 minutes before the processional, one of the string quartet players sent a text saying she'd been in a minor car accident and couldn't make it. Not hurt, just couldn't come. The venue coordinator, a woman named Sandra who had been managing events there for 11 years, found me immediately and laid out 3 options. Proceed as a trio, use the backup Bluetooth speaker system, or call a musician she kept on standby. She had a violinist named Tim. She called him for exactly these situations. Tim was available. Tim arrived at 5:42 p.m., 18 minutes before the ceremony, and played the entire processional and recessional from memory because Sandra had texted him the song list while he was driving over. Nobody in the audience knew. The quartet looked complete from the seats. The music was perfect. After the ceremony, Sandra found me at cocktail hour and said, "I just want you to know that almost never happens. Both things in one day, but it all worked out." I told her she was very good at her job. The rest of the evening was exactly what we had hoped it would be. Kayla was radiant. I don't use that word. I am not a word person. But she was. Her ivory dress had this long train, and when she came down the aisle, I couldn't breathe for about 3 seconds. My dad was in the front row. He doesn't cry. He sat there with this look on his face like he was working very hard not to, and he was losing. We had written our own vows. I had mine memorized, but also had a backup index card in my inside jacket pocket because I am who I am. I didn't need the card. The reception was everything. The DJ, A guy named Corey, who I had researched obsessively before booking, read the room perfectly, started slow during dinner, built the back half of the night into something Kayla's mother later called the most fun I've had in 20 years. Our photographer, Jess, was everywhere and somehow invisible at the same time. She got a shot during the first dance where the garden string lights hit just right, me looking at Kayla, not the camera, and Kayla with her eyes closed. A real moment? Nobody posed for it. That photo ended up being the one everybody talks about. We have it in a 20 by 24 frame in our living room, and I stop and look at it probably 4 times a week. Dinner was perfect. Filet and salmon, both excellent. The past appetizers during cocktail hour disappeared in about 12 minutes, which I later learned was the fastest the venue had ever seen. I didn't drink much that night. I had 2 glasses of champagne and switched to water. I wanted to remember everything. Terrence gave a best man speech that was legitimately the best public speaking I have ever seen him do. He talked about the time I helped him move into his first apartment using only a Toyota Camry and 3 trips, and somehow made it a complete summary of who I am. Standing ovation. At 11 p.m., the lights came up slow and people started hugging. Kayla's dad grabbed my shoulder on his way out and said, "She picked well." That was it, 3 words. I've thought about them a lot since. We got to the hotel at midnight. I sat on the edge of the bed and took my shoes off, and Kayla sat next to me, and we didn't say anything for a minute. Then she said, "Tell me the whole Palmetto Shores story, from the beginning." So I walked her through all of it, Gary and his 2 business days, the condo in Panama City that I almost booked, Marcus calling Donna, the deposit before 8 in the morning. I showed her the Blue Heron website. She looked at the pictures of the inn for a long time. She said, "It's actually really beautiful." I said I thought so too. She laughed and leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there. I thought about the whole day. The call at 6:47 a.m., the Rooster notepad, Tim the violinist with 18 minutes to spare, the way Kayla looked coming down the aisle, my dad's face, Terrence's speech. We drove to Amelia Island the next morning. Left at 9, stopped once for coffee and breakfast sandwiches, pulled into the Blue Heron parking lot just before 1 p.m. Donna was there when we arrived. She was in her 60s, gray hair, completely no-nonsense manner that I immediately respected. She took one look at us, smiled, and upgraded us to the corner suite at no additional charge because it had just opened from a 2-night stay that morning. The corner suite had floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, a private deck, and a bottle of champagne in an ice bucket with a handwritten card that said "Congratulations," signed by Donna. Kayla walked out onto the deck and stood there looking at the water for a long time. Then she turned around and said, "Tell your brother thank you from me." I texted Marcus right then. His reply was, "You had this figured out by 9 a.m. on your wedding day. I just made one phone call, don't thank me." I thanked him anyway. Now for the aftermath, because there was one. Palmetto Shores took 11 days to process the refund. They'd said 7 to 10 business days, so not technically a lie, but I was checking my account every day. I filed a credit card dispute on day 9. That apparently accelerated things. The $4,650 refund hit on the morning of day 11. I removed the dispute immediately. I left detailed, factual reviews on 3 platforms. The system migration, the morning of call, the inability to reach a manager, Gary's 2 business days response, and the automated email that blindsided my wife on our wedding day. No name-calling, no drama, just what happened in order. 2 of the 3 reviews got a response from Palmetto Shores Corporate. 1 went unacknowledged. I also sent a handwritten thank you note to Donna at the Blue Heron. Thanked her for taking us on no notice, for the upgrade, for the champagne, and for the way she ran her inn. 8 nights, and the entire stay was exactly what a honeymoon should be. Quiet, beautiful, no schedule, fresh seafood, beach walks every morning, actual books, more sleep than we'd had in months. On the 6th night, we were sitting on the deck after dinner, and Kayla said, "I think this was better than Palmetto Shores would have been." I said I thought so too. Financially, we ended up fine. The Palmetto Shores refund covered the Blue Heron stay with about $1,500 left over. The honeymoon ended up costing us $2,580 instead of $4,650. I am not a silver lining person, but I noted the number. A few weeks after the wedding, Terrence sent me a card. Inside it said, "You handled a crisis before your first cup of coffee on your wedding day. I have never been more convinced you have your life together." He signed it with his usual illegible signature and drew a little rooster next to it, referencing the notepad. I kept the card. I still have the notepad. It's in the box with the wedding stuff, the programs, the menu cards, the dried flowers from Kayla's bouquet. The rooster is still on the cover. Inside, in my handwriting, is the list I made at 7:14 a.m. Palmetto Shores, canceled, fully booked 3 weeks, refund pending. Need, beachfront, South Carolina or Georgia or Florida. Available tomorrow, 2 people. Money available, 2,800 checking, 6,000 credit. Start calling. Kayla saw it once when we were going through the box and asked what it was. I told her. She read it for a second and put it back carefully, like it was something worth keeping. I think it is. If something falls apart on your wedding day, and I really hope it doesn't, here's what I know. Every single person in that room at 6 p.m. saw a perfect ceremony. Nobody knew about Gary and his 2 business days. Nobody knew about Tim arriving with 18 minutes to spare. Nobody knew about the rooster notepad or the deposit I'd put down before I'd even eaten breakfast. From the outside, it was a perfect day. And honestly, from the inside, too. Just with a better honeymoon than I originally planned. So I want to know, what would you have done if your resort called at 6:47 a.m. on your wedding day and told you the reservation was gone? Because I genuinely still can't believe I didn't just sit down on that guest bed and stay there.